Welcome to this Midfix podcast. Today's session is on the subject of Zinc Whiskers, and I'm joined by Tim Brown from Zipclip.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Tim. How are you?
Thanks for inviting us. Yeah, good.
No problem. We couldn't think of anybody better to invite along on this particular subject, so hopefully you can throw some light on it.
I'll do my best.
A little bit of background on you, Tim. This isn't your first podcast for us, but just to remind the listeners about yourself, you've had X number of years in the industry?
Yeah, I've been in the industry for over 40 years. Started off on the tools, went through engineering with various contractors, moved into sales, predominantly on cable management. Started off with Ackermans and then had spells at Cablerfield with the basket and probably the halcyon period of basket. Unistrut, Unitrunk. So I've been around cable management a lot, and 2.5 years ago joined Zipclip as specification manager. So covered a lot of areas in the industry. And
it's probably your containment background that's given you a decent insight into today's topic of Zinc Whiskers.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's been on my table for at least 20 years. That one.
Well, I for one, I'm looking forward to debunking a few myths, if that's okay. So, as an M&E distributor, we often get involved with particularly data centres, where we get asked the question about Zinc Whiskers.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, just for the audience, can you just outline what that is? What are Zinc Whiskers?
Yeah, well, the first thing is Zinc Whiskers are not a myth. There's a lot of people that will be watching or listening into this, and they'll be thinking, yeah, here we go, the same old tosh about Zinc Whiskers. Well, you know, the key thing is Zinc Whiskers were first discovered in the late 40s by Bell Laboratories and NASA, so we're looking at telecoms era, 1948, 1950.
Right.
And basically they're a crystalline structure. So if you've got zinc, and originally they were found in tin whiskers, if you've got zinc or you've got components that have got the opportunity to create a crystalline structure, and zinc is the perfect bedrock for that, these crystals can grow, and they've become known as zinc whiskers over the years because they look like a whisker. They're really fine sort of filiform hairs. They can grow a few millimetres over a number of years, a few microns in diameter, but they're there. You know, they exist, and if you look, if you Google Zinc Whiskers, the number of places that you're going to get information about them is incredible.
Yeah, I think the issue for us as a distributor trying to research the subject, it's coming up with a solution that's part of the issue. But I'm taking it these Zinc Whiskers, and can they grow in any environment, or does it have to be a specific type of environment?
No, they can. If there's zinc in the surface content of a product, and as you said, Steve, particularly in my experience, cable management, if there's zinc present in the surface layer to protect the base material, then they've got the potential to grow.
Right.
The potential. It doesn't mean to say they will, but they've got the potential. And the challenge with Zinc Whiskers is that the data industry particularly have drawn notice to it by the way they address it in specifications. It tends to sit in the electrical services part within the cable management area. You don't tend to see it in other parts of the specification. So, as we just said, if you've got a product that's got zinc in the surface, it just doesn't have to be cable management.
Well, no, that's very true, because most of the products that we supply have a zinc content somewhere along the line. So looking at that then, what are the dangers of a zinc whisker? Take the data centre as the environment that we're working in.
Yeah, well, originally in data centres, it stems from when the floor tiles were predominantly hot dip galvanised for the stirrups, the steels, the pedestals, the pans for the floor tiles, and most people got confused with the fact that when you're lifting and dropping floor tiles, you chip sections off. You know, a zinc flake rather than a zinc whisker, and obviously they used to use the floor area as an air plenum a lot more than they perhaps do now. I think the design of data centres is changing. The problem is they haven't updated the specification to some extent to change the opinion of that. So, you know, zinc whiskers in terms of floor tiles was the the key issue,
Right.
and it's when they grow, and they grow due to stress. So stress in the manufacturing process, cutting and bending on site. So if you're forming trays, ladders, baskets on site, you're inducing more stress into the material. In the actual process and the chemical reaction of the galvanizing in the bath, that can create stress as well. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult to eliminate that. And when these crystals grow, they're fine while they're attached. It's when they break off and get into the airstream.
When they're free. Yeah.
Absolutely, because they're like a little piece of wire. Effectively, they could end up in hardware, could end up in a delicate piece of instrumentation and create a short circuit.
Yeah.
Now, it could take down equipment. The evidence has disappeared because this little piece of zinc whisker has evaporated. So how do you know where the guilty party came from? Was it cable management? Was it the floor tile? Was it a cabinet? Was it structural steel?
There's no way of tracing it back.
There's no way of tracing
Yeah.
it back. And,
Yeah.
and part of the challenge that I've had over the years is the fact that they put the hoop jumper on cable management as the bad guy, as the villain,
Yeah.
to say this is the root source of it. And it doesn't have to be the case, but it's easy. People love to have somewhere to place their discussion point. Well, it's the cable management,
Yeah.
because it gets changed, the cables get pulled in, so therefore there's stress there to help break the zinc whiskers off.
Okay.
And it's not always the case.
But really, that might not be the root cause. The root cause could be elsewhere.
Could be elsewhere, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's quite interesting. So basically, what we're saying then is, in a normal M&E environment, let's take a school environment. We're building a new school. Zinc whiskers are still occurring.
Yep.
It's the environment that makes them almost negligible. They're not worth worrying about.
Absolutely.
Put that environment into a data center where we've got the possibility of tracking and arcing
Yep.
on the equipment, then it's a big issue.
Yeah, and as I
So-
said, the data center have raised the profile of it. Now, I would think there's some big organisations that deal with the storage and that of data that don't consider it to be as much of an issue, because it's incredibly difficult to find evidence of a data center that's gone down because of
of
zinc
it.
whiskers. Because who would want to own up to it?
Well, you wouldn't. No, exactly. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah.
So it is difficult to trace that, but over the years, my argument has been not to just pinpoint cable management as
Yeah.
the villain of the piece, but to be aware that it can come from anywhere where there's a zinc coating.
So it's all products with a zinc content, whether it's pre-galv, hot dip galv.
Yep,
They all suffer from this phenomenon.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, then the really easy question then: how do you stop it?
Simple answer: stainless steel.
Okay.
Who's going to build a stainless steel data center?
So yeah, go back to the simple answer. How do you stop it without stainless steel?
You can reduce the impact. I mean, there's a train of thought that hot dip galv will actually delay the growth of zinc whiskers, but won't eradicate it. And,
Even though there's more zinc content there.
yeah, I know it's perverse, isn't it?
Right.
But I've seen specifications written where people have put in block capitals and underlined hot dip galv material must be used in cable management to prevent the growth of zinc whiskers, and it's wrong, but it's in the specification.
So where's that come from? Has that come from again?
From the M&E consultants, and they must be responding to concerns from the client. So they address it,
Okay.
but they put an answer in there that's not right.
So to me, as a layman, you'd think the obvious solution would be to remove the zinc part of the
Absolutely.
issue.
Absolutely. The best way to eradicate zinc whiskers is to eliminate zinc in the content,
Okay.
which is obviously why stainless steel will do the job in terms of your cable management.
Yeah.
But then you've got to be using stainless steel rods, stainless steel supports in
Yep.
terms of channel or
Fixings,
proprietary,
everything,
the whole lot, and a system's as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah.
There's another view about encapsulation. That it's a good point, but as you and I will appreciate, encapsulating products, powder coating or whatever, they get damaged in transit.
Yeah, they bring a second load of issues to the table.
Absolutely.
So again, a bit like stainless steel, you'd have to encapsulate everything.
Total
Yeah.
encapsulation. So stainless steel is the product that will eliminate zinc whiskers. There's a lot of work being done by manufacturers in terms of new almost formulas for zinc coatings that are going to reduce or potentially eliminate zinc whiskers. But the problem is it's the history. You're only going to find out over a period of time.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that a lot of people face, and it's knowing where to go for the right information, because as we've said, there's information out there that's not right, and people are putting information forward to say, well, I've pushed this forward to the professional team or whatever. So
I'm assuming then, just going back to basics, as with a lot of things in M&E, is there an official standard to it, or a BS, a best practice?
There isn't.
Well, there you go. That's about right. Then, yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah.
So it's all hearsay.
It is.
Right.
Like we said at the outset, a lot of people will completely be dismissive about zinc whiskers. Well, to be dismissive about zinc whiskers, you'll know from some of your customers, they're going to get a specification that talks about eliminating or reducing the risk of zinc whiskers, and people come at you and say, Steve, what product do I supply? What finish have I got to offer?
Yeah.
And what do they offer? Because to eliminate it, it's got to be stainless.
Yeah.
And no one wants to pay for that cost. But if you think about our daily lives, almost every moment of every day, data's involved in our lives, isn't it?
It's vitally important.
The transportation, the storage. So, how much cost? What value do you put on that? I mean, let's say, if you just go down the normal pre-galv electro zinc route and go, well, I'll just take a chance on it, and you could, and you might get away with it.
Yeah.
And that might be 150, 200,000 pounds for cable management. And obviously with the volatile market we've got at the moment, looking at the stainless option could double or triple that cost.
And then some, yeah.
And would tuck up the problem as far as the cable management people are concerned.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't eliminate the problem if there was still pre-galv, hot dip galv product in that data centre.
So really, we're looking at the only true solution would be to remove all the zinc content, so to go down the stainless road.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a GRP road. But that brings other issues.
It does.
But stainless will get rid of it. To minimise the risk, we're looking at a hot dip galv encapsulated end solution.
Well, that minimises it to some extent based on the information that I've seen over 20 years that I've been addressing and looking at this issue.
Yeah.
There's been independent reports commissioned and content from people that are really knowledgeable about whiskers, and they've said about the delaying tactic that hot dip galv will or could produce.
Okay.
And if you think about how many data centres went in, I mean, in my time at Cablerfield, I can't think how many data centres I was involved with where hot dip galv was the product that people accepted.
Okay.
I've been to sites where they even powder coated hot dip galv product, a really expensive solution and not a particularly successful one in terms of it's difficult to work with. But I think one of the other issues that you need to consider is that in hot dip galv product you get over galvanizing.
Yeah.
So on the cable trays you get the slot patterns filled up with.
You get the big flakes.
Absolutely. And it's people thinking that a zinc flake is a zinc whisker that is also a problem. Now, a zinc flake will get picked up in a deep clean.
Yeah.
And a zinc whisker may not.
Yeah.
Even with the best filters available. And as I said, the design of data centres is changing more so that a lot more of the containment is now overhead, so it's not necessarily in the direct flow of air in that respect.
Yeah.
But now it's actually above the cabinets, so you could argue, well, if it gets knocked off during the cable pulling, you're no better off than having it in the airflow.
No.
So it's chicken and egg, isn't it?
Well, that's interesting then. So we're possibly looking at then risk reduction now, as opposed to, because we've kind of said stainless is going to be commercially a non-starter. So we're looking at reducing the risk.
Yeah.
You mentioned something right at the beginning about inducing the stresses in the product, which breaks off and creates the free whiskers. Do you see offsite as being an important part in risk reduction? So getting the majority of that work done away from the data facility and then shipped in, so there's less manual handling of that particular product?
I mean, offsite could help. There's no two ways about it, because if you can put it through a QA system off-site, whereby all the flakes are cleaned off, you know, one of the problems that you have when you just deliver material to site and you get a bundler, tray, ladder, basket, whatever, people that are expecting to see containment are not necessarily expecting to see the sort of industrial finish that hot dip galv provides. And then you know, maybe the client or client's representative is looking at it from an aesthetic point of view and thinking that's a really ugly product.
Yeah, it's a rough finish.
Not considering that, you know, what you've actually got is a suitable product to fit your, if you like, your money pot that you've got available for the job. So prefabrication, if you've got someone that can really clean the product down, it would certainly help when it got to site if there wasn't flakes and you know, and evidence of that would probably induce some more confidence. But it still doesn't get away from the fact that you've got a hot dip galv or a pre-galv product that's still got that potential, and so that's the key, the potential.
So maybe for the smaller components then, something like a spun galvanised component would be ideal because the finish is superb. But then how do you spin galv a 6 metre length of cable containment?
Well, there you go.
Doesn't happen, does it?
No.
Is there, then talking about products, do you feel there are some products that are a higher risk than others?
Well, obviously electro zinc and products that are directly using the galvanising process. I mean, the thing with pre-galvanising is that because it's got a better aesthetic appearance, and you know, it's still a hot dip galv process, and here we have another ambiguity that the industry and people that maybe don't have a complete knowledge about it fall into the trap. You know, pre-galv is hot dip galved at the mill, so when it gets to the manufacturer, the galvanising is already in place, the protection is done to 8, 12, 20 microns. It's then punched if it's a cable tray, which exposes base material, and that base material, you know, the galvanising process may scar over that and protect it, but you've still got that zinc component in the finished product. And the same with the electro zinc for cable basket. You know, it's in the name, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So the clue is, guess what? It's electro zinc. You know, again, there's no option to it. If you go back to, as I say, the early 2000s, there was a raft of data centres being built as there is now, and a lot of those will be putting in hot dip galv ladder, pre-galv ladder, you know, based on opinions that pre-galv is and will eradicate zinc whiskers.
So what you're saying is the spec for each data centre may well be different.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Based on people's interpretation of the information that they've sourced and read, and also the information that the installer's able to get and pass on as saying, well, there's the information I've got on the product that I've supplied. You know, it states in that documentation it eliminates or it reduces the risk. So you know, I can't do any more than that. And he's right.
We have that throughout the industry. It's very much like chlorinated environments in swimming pools. A lot of it is left up to whoever's interpreting the information to come up with the answer. And if you've got 3 people reading it, you may well have 3 different answers.
Oh, absolutely.
So there is no, again, like with Zinc Whiskers, there's no hard and fast BS behind it. There's no standards behind it. There's no guidance behind it. It's all, this is what we think. You make of it what you will. Okay. Okay, so you're not helping. You're not making the solutions any easier here for us. Going back on all your experience, I think you said 40 odd years worth of experience. What's been, to you, what's been the, when I say best, I mean what's been the lowest risk solution you've seen actually go out there on a data centre?
The lowest risk, I mean, on the data centres I worked on, certainly the majority of them went out as hot dip galv. And that was the accepted norm, and for some big financial players, you know, that was what they want. And to my knowledge, None of those data centers have ever had problems, and you know, we worked, I'd suggest 2005 through 2010.
All right.
There were loads of data centers, and that was the benchmark.
Okay.
You know.
And the product itself, was that pre-treated afterwards, or was it cleaned? Did it go through a deep clean process?
We certainly had projects where we would wire brush.
So you get rid of the flakes.
Get rid of the flakes.
Okay.
You know, without a shadow of a doubt, because as I said, I had a number of situations where exactly that product got to site. The client would say, "There's a lot of zinc whiskers on this," and you knew straight away that it would be over galvanizing zinc flakes. So, you know, as part of the customer service aspect, you would go and do what you could. But obviously now data centers are huge.
Yeah.
And the one thing that manufacturers tend not to do is to include in their price for their workforce to go over and wire brush the whole cable management system.
Correct. Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No.
You know, so you're kind of incumbent upon the galvanizing process to be as definitive as it can be in terms of producing an aesthetically appealing hot dip gal finish.
Yeah.
And it's difficult.
Yeah.
You know, it's an old-fashioned process, isn't it?
It is.
You know,
it is.
So it's difficult to produce what people would deem as acceptable.
Okay.
But I certainly never supplied a stainless steel containment system.
Neither have we. So I think there's something to be taken from that. Yes. Would love to, but we've never done it.
It was a difference between Bognor and Barbados.
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. So, leaving then on this final note, then, what advice would you give to a project manager, contracts manager just looking at a data center? What advice would you give them? Where would you point them for information?
I think, you know, there is information out there in terms of papers. There was a document produced by Dr. Colin Gagg from the Open University, who was an expert on tin and zinc whiskers, that addresses the issue and looks at the potential and explains the stress related issues in a lot of detail, in a very technical, a really technical level.
Okay.
And I think that article, as I say, Dr. Colin Gagg, is a good piece for people to work on. But I think that there's no substitute, as in any part of our industry, for early engagement.
Yes. To
bring everyone round the table and say, look, the zinc whisker issue has raised its head again. You know, they've got obviously the CPD that I've produced at ZipClip.
Yeah.
They can refer to that. They can call me.
Yeah.
They can get in touch with me. I can literally only tell them what I've been speaking to you about this morning.
Yeah.
Much of it, as I said, it's just that awareness. A lot of people heard of zinc whiskers, but they just don't understand what the potential damage is that they can create.
Yeah, and I think for us that's been part of the solution. It's we all agree it's a risk reduction as opposed to elimination. So what we're helping people do is just give them enough information to evidence that they reduce the risk as much as practically possible.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the end solution.
Yeah.
Really. It's not a solution, sorry, but it's an offer.
It would, to me, it would be great if the data industry and the really big players in terms of data storage and that would come out with a definitive statement about how they view zinc whiskers, so that the industry itself made the statement that everyone could refer to, rather than people down the chain having to, as we said, interpret.
I can't see that's not going to happen, because that would take them assuming the responsibility. So that's what it's about, Tim. Thank you for that. It's about reducing the risk.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time.
Pleasure, Steve. Thank you.